halfway because I thought it was where you might go just before I start on this exterior. I'm just putting in a door, and I'm just going to use a left hinged, which means from the inside the knob will be on the left. And then just to look at these, I mentioned these the other day, the contemporary panels that have these super low 3 11/16 or 4 11 bottom rails, and all the rest are, and these sides are 3 11. So these are all 3 11, and these are all 4 11 of those two types. And then you go to a more of a French door panel where the bottom rail can be 8 inches, 12 inches, and the rest of these are 4 11. And I did mention these panels. It looks to me like if you to use one of these French door, or one of these panel doors from Andersen, because it's an Andersen product. I don't know what these prices are, but I will get something on that from my supplier, just so you have something to work with. But yeah, if you use these panels, this is a really traditional look here. And as I mentioned yesterday, they make these doors with panels in the bottom and glass on top, which I thought of, or it occurred to me because of that panel work you have in your hallway and entry. And so Andersen makes them, and Marvin makes them. The main reason I came into Andersen again is I wasn't sure whether they made a 28-inch door. And there's their panel door. They make the panel side light as well. But their transom, we would be having somebody make that transom for us because they don't go down to 10.5. So here's one of these panel doors put together with a 36-inch entry door, and then it's flanked, but these take 28 to fill this space like it's shown here. These take 28 inches, and they make a 24, and they make a 30. So those would be custom there, and this piece, if it comes from them, would be custom. So yes, I just wanted to return to this one last time to confirm that with Andersen, that you couldn't use a 36 with two flanking 28s, and probably most of the manufacturers don't make the 28-inch wide for these doors. Finally, and I promise this will be the last bit on these doors, it may be that you want to finish this interior like these doorways are finished. Now, these go all the way up to the ceiling, and you could only do that if you raised that exterior brick lintel, and you would have a bigger transom up here, which is one idea. But it could be that you want to, instead of having this just treated like a cased situation like this, have it treated more like this, where maybe that's finished something like that, or this neck mold here is being picked up here, and then the crown at the top. But those are some last minute considerations with regard to that, and probably we should wait till the porch a little bit further along. We might want to see how the whole thing interacts with that as well. That was yesterday, and between then and now I've covered went down a variety of different pathways with regard to the door, and just so that is fully explained. And then development with the porch outside, which that was yesterday, and today I'm recording this film now. And there's a lot of different information to cover just in this film, but we're going to pick up where I had been yesterday with where I went from that location, or from that time. And I had shown you with the picking up this molding, and so that's what it looks like in that representation. Again, that transom is probably custom, but it all depends on what actually develops eventually. As I went further down, I ended up using 3 separate transoms, and kind of based on this theme of 3 windows here. And then I began to consider, actually, because of what I knew there was, where I was going to probably go with the outside, with the porch itself, I began to, and how that was going to be finished inside, I began to consider the possibility of raising that brick lintel, because you could just use just about anything and it would be covered by what we're going to do out there. I mean, you could use heavy wood, or you could use a little piece of steel, not even an angle. You could just use a little steel beam, so you wouldn't even have any brickwork, because it would be covered by the fascia, because the way I have it, is that these windows go up and then there's wood that goes up to the ceiling, and that's the end of it. So moving the brick lintel up became less of the earlier headache that I thought it was going to be when I began to think things a little further along. But this was just really messing around with this transom, and it's important always through any of these films is, nothing will be considered good or finished until we get to the end. And here we go with this, where we split this into the 3 separate transoms, which I think is an improvement regardless of what is happening with these doors down here. Not sure about this arrangement, but if you look, these are the molded casings down low that come up and die under here, just like this does. But I'm showing the short casing at the top as just square stock, like that is there. So, but probably if this were the end result, I think these might look better if this was just the colonial that ran up as well. So I believe the way it worked out is raising that brick lintel out there, you don't end up going all the way to the ceiling, which might be a bit overpowering. Anyway, this whole film though goes down a road basically with a larger kind of higher style porch addition with this door as a taller thing like this. And so I don't know if you go down to get rid of all these transoms. Well, we talked about this. We have that 7-inch space up there, and I don't know if that's filled in or not. But this film largely covers a larger kind of structure outside, along with these doors, then larger doors this way. Finally, beginning further work on the porch structure itself. If this is the center of the door system, whatever sort of door system, and I remember this started from coming back with this here. So this whole, whether these stay here, becomes in question going forward. But to begin, to start out with, I reflected this off the center line of that door so that we ended up with another column symmetrical to that door, and then that is how I determined how this end wall was going to fall, is that these gaps are even between here. And you had, I believe you indicated this was around 2 feet, come over here all the way to 2 feet, but this is at 4 feet here, and you end up with this sort of arrangement here. And then of course we're going to bring this out where it's even with this column here. So going forward, one of the things we'll consider toward the end of the film is what happens with this column here, whether that's going to stay here. But if the structure is going to come out here even with this, then it's that. And then after this film, actually, because it didn't get to it in this film, or only got so far in this film, but there will be, I imagine, some sort of an adjustment where even this one is eliminated and this is relied upon in joining these even further. But I don't know that at this point. So starting from those parameters, then you end up with 12'2" by about 21 porch area. And then those rocks and the planting bed are shifted something like this. So we have 3'6" between these two 5.5-inch columns. And this was originally, I believe, laid out here because I had envisioned that maybe the load would be trusses going back and forth this way. As it is, we're going to have some sort of a beam back here, so we need at least this column here, or some sort of a bearing point here. And I suppose you could replace this column and then just go the whole way, but we will have to have some sort of member back here, at least, some sort of LVL beam back there to carry the load. Now it's all going out to this front part here, if this becomes a shed roof, which that's what is developed more or less in this film. So I began with that deck at that whole deck area at level with the inside subfloor. This is at 0 here, and we still had the required code clearance underneath these cross members here. And I'm really not worried about them because it just, creates a feeling of intimacy in here. They're not crouching down on you, I don't believe. But yeah, I mean, it'd be better if we had more space. But I'm designed this from this standpoint, and this whole film is designed from this deck platform being level with the inside. And as you can see right away, this envisions a high ceilinged space. And this is the old door opening here, so this envisions also losing about 4 or 5 courses of brick across here and putting some sort of little short steel beam from here to there, and that will ultimately be covered. But with regard to all of these little null posts, secondarily, these columns will be staying at 5.5 inches. What we do down here is up to us, because they all need rebuilt. So the minimum is a 5.5 inch column going down. However, everything is shown with these as they are, but of course our railing, we're going to have a railing at least across this front, and I have it everywhere on that side there as well. And then we start building this beamwork here, and I believe this heads down a whole road then from here on. I think it's probably then we start building the outside, leading to this series of photographs. Okay, first I've tried to adjust these cameras to be more like what is real. Ignore the wobbly sidewalk, but I've tried to adjust these where it's more real life. Here you can see this piece of wood that's going across, any little piece of steel that goes across there to hold up that brick. And the way this brick is here, there's so much brick up there, you'll be able to remove those 4 courses and your little piece that you need out at each end without anything happening out there, without any shoring. Those are not going to fall down. I built this porch with that band there as a fascia board, a freeze board. You can see it running all the way over, 3/4 inch deep, and it hides the bottom of that beam as well. And because I started this way, thinking of uniting these two structures like this is the road I went down. And this road, I don't know, this is only the beginning, and I'm not sure if we arrive somewhere that starts getting acceptable or not. But I was able to continue to live with it in any event. And I'll say right now, just so that this is covered, but now all these columns again are the 5.5. All these brackets here, these are the ones that are existing back in here. And if we make new ones, or I want to investigate how we can, if anybody makes these large enough out of polyurethane type material. But even if they don't, then this is pretty expensive, probably having this millwork put together. But it's almost probably necessary. But the one way to lighten up the mass of this structure is to reduce some of these pieces here, these bracket pieces. And any number of bracketing, if all of them are lost, then we can use any number of material and design motif as well. I mean, I like them as they are now, and that was somebody's idea. And there's arches out here as well. So there's quite a bit to consider with that. So I'll try not to go on and on about that. That's how I began, and obviously once you bring those couple elements over, you have to cover the bottom of this, and I just am showing this as kind of a standard vertical type arrangement, and these are just those composite deck boards or stained 5/4 by 6 running to the ground here. You will need a railing on this, but we'll cover that in a minute. And once you do this top bit, once you carry that top bit over, you really have to carry almost all of those elements over. But I started from that first course of dentil and then added the necessary railing. Now, apparently, unless we had this made of steel or some sort of special material, we can't span more than 8 feet between 6 by 6 newel posts or columns. So this more open arrangement would only be able to be done with special engineering. And I don't know if a 2x4 or any wood material that's in the neighborhood of this thickness would span that. And I'm sure it can be fastened into these well enough that it's not going anywhere. But it's a case of whether it would ultimately bow in or out, because you could have a little block underneath holding it up. So then this bed kind of finishes out this way. Now you can get see a better idea of how these this door system and the transoms and that interior fascia board that covers the steel and these cross members work. But when we start, I brought the rest of this dentil across here as well. And eventually I bring this roof over here, which leads to a different path. But right now, just show you to the end here, as you talked about this, a shed roof. And this is as high as I can get that shed roof and stay underneath this window here, which is about 2.5, 12 pitch. I think it's even less than that, but it has to be metal or rubber in any event. And there's so little wall showing there, I believe, that I went to a shed roof like this, or a hip roof like this. And this at this point, I guess that's when I covered the next section of that deck and added these stairs through here. So now it's covered all the way over to the pergola and the stairs. And this is what I mean, it's not necessarily beautiful, but it's not hateful. It has an awful lot of power compared to the rest of what is happening here, at least in these photographic representations. So it feels kind of heavy, and if we leave it this high, I'll probably experiment slightly with trying to lighten it somewhat, and it would probably, I don't think it's going to help if you lower this, or even if you were inclined to have this porch not be level with the inside, or this floor not be level with the inside. I think that's only probably going to add to its power. But I'm wondering, I think if you got this down 8 inches, that might be low enough you wouldn't need any railings. But I don't know if you're looking for that kind of open porch. This is a nice big environment for gathering, and the scenery out there is beautiful from that corner. So maybe it can be forgiven since there's landscaping and whatnot. And while either of those things can be done at that end, I had done this sort of thing at that end. This required a gutter here, and I was able to accomplish that, but because of where I went with the gutter in general and its interface with this piece here to join these kind of two structures together, I got rid of that and just went to a shed roof there, which makes good sense anyway. And this was how I got that gutter or that downspout through here, but it wasn't even needed anyway, because everything could have just run to the other end. But presume that this stays, and its dental stay. This is the situation, this column here, and we have to have a beam that runs from here to this column here, ostensibly, and that's why that column is there, and that's why this other bit is here. This bit here, I don't know if it's best to eliminate or not yet until I look at that, but we could have a beam, and I haven't calculated how big this beam has to be yet, but if we were to dig a new foundation for this particular 6x6 here, and I'm not sure how easy it is to take that apart through there and replace it up through here, but if we were to dig a new foundation, well, even actually if we could build a new foundation up to the bottom of this and cut it off and put it on a new base where we know that this can support this load, or the city knows that it can support the load, then it would definitely be possible to eliminate this whole system. So that's one of the things I'll be briefly looking at in any event going forward, because that'll have to be addressed regardless of how high a porch we have out here, how long, etc. That will need to be addressed. Just the look of this needs to be addressed too. I think I have some others. Yeah, there's no real aesthetic with this piece here. So we will have to see going forward. Then we run through these developments from this, just from this angle pretty much. And the one thing that reduces some of this is if all of this water table is made a little bit smaller, that will help as well. But this one here uses just a low slope hip roof that you can't see from anywhere, keeping these structures divided, and this space in through here is open to the sky. If stairs come down here or here, I mean, this is stairs. I developed them in one location, but I don't think that's over yet. But almost looking at it, I almost think you don't have a choice but to use a similar motif with these two, whether you keep them separate like this or not. And here's where I went to that shed roof, and I eventually got rid of this. I left this open at the lower course through here just because I wasn't done developing it. So this little space in here ought to be ignored, and I never do carry these across. I believe I carry the top across. But yeah, because I had it like this with nothing carried across, and these are the stairs going down. And eventually, well, you'll see, eventually this gutter gets carried around here, whether pointlessly or not, gets carried around as a cornice molding at the top of this structure here. And I suppose part of its, power and busyness is coming from all these dentils. And maybe I'm overstating it because there is landscaping as well out here, plus from the road, etc. So we can do all the downspout with just this one here. Yeah, I like this detail here now that I can't remember, but I like this being open, at least from this angle. I kind of like this not being joined, but we will see going forward. And yeah, you could have this end open. I'm not sure why a person might, but they could, because it's less than 30 inches to the ground here. And that might help if we do eliminate this bit through here. That might actually help. So from straight on, I did not take another straight on finished photograph like this with this gutter being carried around. Then there's a whole development this end. So really I felt like this could be worked with, and my main objection, if there was one for me, was more about its bigness and its mass. And I'm not sure, I don't want to make it any smaller just because of what's happening with this. So, and here, yeah, here's where you see that gutter come around. So it'd been nice to show and I'm not going to do it now, but it'd been nice to show a shot from this end with that gutter going around. So that is a few things that I'd like to see, as well as what happens with railings and this stair here. I'm not overly crazy about that stair there. I mean, I'm not, everything can be healed with landscaping as well. And there's got to be a railing down here, which means another one of these knoll posts is down here. But I'm not I'm not overly positive about that, and I'd like to see where that goes a little bit as well. And I think that's actually it for now, which is good because I'll be able to get this over to you. This was a section view, actually, so it's not quite it. This is section view through there. This was still without the straight shed roof on this end. And like I said, it doesn't really matter one way or another. I thought maybe this would show that standing seam roof a little bit more, but I think it could be just as easily shed roof on this end as well. But this builds its own deck framing, and that's the location of your existing exhaust things. Something will have to be done about these, whether they can be moved down a little bit, because we need to have this, whatever kind of beam back here is going to hold our stuff up. We need to be able to have it not have holes in it. Oh, I just put in that window well that will be in the dark underneath there. And yeah, so this is from down the hill, and I managed to smooth out the road at least. But it's pretty, there's a lot. There is landscaping on that road as well. Okay, that is all for today or tonight, and I will be doing a few more things with this, just even without hearing from you, just because I want to know. So that's all. Thank you very much, and I'll be in touch.